Welcome to the deep dive. So today, we're not just taking the scenic route, we are strapping into the driver's seat of a high-performance vehicle and exploring the absolute limit of control. We're really moving beyond the kind of casual car handling tips you see everywhere. We're delving into the elite philosophy of managing a machine when that margin between perfection and, well, disaster is measured in millimeters and milliseconds.
That's exactly it. And our sources today, they basically put us right in the cockpit with the masters.
Yeah.
We've been diving into these foundational performance driving texts.
Like Skip Barber.
Yeah. Specifically the philosophies taught by the Skip Barber Racing School, and then all the wisdom collected by coaches like Ross Bentley in his Speed Secret series.
Yeah.
We're looking at drivers who treat physics not as some kind of barrier, but more like a defined boundary that they must always be, kissing.
Right.
So our mission here is to really understand that ultimate balance point, the rigid, unchangeable laws of tire traction versus the sheer adaptability of the human mind.
And that gets right to the heart of this whole debate for anyone obsessed with speed. What is the real source of control at that level? Is true speed achieved through, perfect cold physical execution? Just the hands and feet doing exactly the right thing?
Or is it something else?
Or is it fundamentally a mental game? Is it about finding that, that state of awareness where the car just feels like an extension of your own body? That control equation is what we're here to unpack.
And to do that, you have to start with the laws of nature. You just have to. Because before any mental trickery can even come into play, there is one fundamental, non-negotiable constraint on your speed.
Tire traction.
Tire traction. Every single thing a driver does, braking, cornering, accelerating, it's all transmitted through those four little contact patches where the rubber meets the road. Use up 100% of that grip, and you're either sliding or you're spinning. That's it.
And the universal concept that governs this, the one every serious driver has to just burn into their brain, is the traction circle. Think of it like a credit limit. You only have 100% of the tire's grip to spend. If you spend 80% of it on braking,
you only have 20% left for turning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the common slow mistake is separating those inputs completely.
It is. So many drivers, they brake only in a straight line.
Yeah.
Then they kind of coast through the middle of the corner. Then they wait until the car is straight again before accelerating. They're leaving huge amounts of lap time on the table.
Because they're not blending the inputs.
Right. They might use 100% of their grip in one dimension, but then just, 0 or 10% in the others. True speed demands that you balance and overlap those forces. You're braking while turning, and you're accelerating while unwinding the steering, all to keep the car riding right on that 99% edge of the circle.
But the driver isn't just balancing inputs, they are actively. They're controlling the car's weight.
Right.
We know that the weight on a tire helps it generate grip. This weight transfer is crucial. But I want to nail a nuance the sources really highlight here. The relationship between more load and more traction, it's decidedly not linear. Why is that specific detail so critical?
Because it tells you that rapid, jerky weight transfer is inherently inefficient for the car as a whole system. See, when weight transfers, the tire that's being unloaded loses grip dramatically. Say 50% of its capability just vanishes.
Okay.
Meanwhile, the tire that's suddenly loaded up only gains grip marginally, maybe 10% more than it had. The result is a net loss of total grip for the vehicle.
So the fastest way to drive is often the smoothest way to drive.
Often, yes. You want to minimize those abrupt, rapid weight changes.
Which makes perfect sense. Fast inputs might look aggressive, but they have to be precise and coordinated to avoid that sudden loss of grip. So when a driver makes a poor choice with weight management, what are the immediate consequences we see?
Oh, the consequences are often very sensational.
I bet.
Take, for example, suddenly lifting off the throttle mid-corner. That action just throws the weight forward, right? It lightens the rear tires. And since the rear tires are responsible for stability, that sharp drop in grip results in what we call trailing throttle oversteer. The back end just steps out instantly.
And the reverse is true too, right? Power oversteer.
Exactly. You accelerate too hard, exiting a turn in a powerful car. You use up all the rear tire's traction for pure acceleration, leaving none for cornering forces. Boom.
Yeah.
Power oversteer. The hands and feet have to control that weight like a pendulum that is constantly on the verge of swinging way too far.
So physics defines the boundaries. But the driver's hands and feet, they're the ones that have to execute inside them. Let's get into the specific techniques the fastest drivers use to stay at that 99% limit, starting with braking. Specifically, braking precision.
The goal, really, is what's called threshold braking. It's the act of quickly squeezing the brakes to maximum pressure, that point right before the wheels lock up, and then modulating that pressure based on the physical feedback you're getting from the car. It's the single point where you are asking the absolute most of the tires in a straight line. But, and this is the key, as important as that initial stomp is, the real secret is the release.
Wait, hold on. You're telling me that focusing on the liftoff point is a bigger time saver than focusing on your initial entry speed? How do the sources back that up?
They are completely definitive on this. As Ross Bentley puts it, how and when you release the brakes will have more effect on your lap times than where you start braking.
Wow.
And the reason is simple. That gentle, gradual release, we call it trail braking. That's the mechanism for controlling weight transfer into the corner. By slowly easing off the pedal, you keep the front tires loaded with weight for longer. That extra load helps the car turn in super responsively and helps it rotate toward the apex. It basically dictates the entire mid-corner phase.
And finding that absolute threshold, it must require microscopic adjustments. I love the Danny Sullivan example the texts use for this.
Oh, it's the perfect illustration of true control, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sullivan says you can't just jump from, say, the 300-foot braking marker to the 200-foot mark.
Right. You can't just take a wild guess.
No. You have to find that absolute point through small steps. Because if you go impossibly late, you ruin the entry, you ruin the corner, and you ruin the exit. That delicate modulation of pressure, inch by inch, that's how the best drivers separate themselves. They don't just know the limit, they live right on it.
Okay, so let's talk about steering, because there's a really counterintuitive truth here. The idea that the less you turn the steering wheel, the faster you will go. Essentially, the steering wheel is a brake.
Absolutely. It's a huge brake. Every single degree you turn that wheel, you are scrubbing off speed. You're introducing friction and you're using up available grip that could be dedicated to just maintaining velocity. The goal is efficiency. It's about maximizing the corner radius. And that's why you see professional drivers consistently using that standard 9-3 hand grip.
To avoid shuffling their hands.
Exactly. In a purpose-built car with the right steering ratio, that grip lets them steer through almost every corner without repositioning their hands. It ensures the smoothest, most efficient inputs possible.
And this leads us to that amazing phrase, steering with your feet. This feels like the ultimate synthesis of physical control.
It is. It really is. Truly fast drivers aren't just pointing the car with their hands. They are using the brakes and the throttle to dynamically play with the car's weight balance. They use that trail braking to get the car to rotate, and then they use the throttle to stabilize it and point it out of the corner.
So they're basically balancing the car on the pedals.
100%. This ability to make the car rotate, more or less, using the pedals, it minimizes the need for those large, speed-scrubbing steering corrections from the hands. The inputs aren't separate actions. They're a continuous overlapping symphony.
And that symphony, that's where the mental side of the debate comes in, right? Because for that to work seamlessly, it can't be conscious.
It cannot be consciously manufactured. It has to be automated. The driver has to move from thinking about how they're doing it to simply doing it.
This is where we talk about the truly elite drivers, like Michael Schumacher, who is famous for being able to drive on that razor's edge of grip better than anyone. But how does a driver even feel 6 or 7 degrees of slip angle? Is that something you train, or are you just born with it?
Oh, it is intensely trained. You're not measuring that angle visually. You're sensing the subtle shift in forces through your body. For a modern racing tire, maximum traction is achieved in a very narrow slip angle range, maybe around 6 to 7 degrees. 3 degrees, you're safe, but you're slow. 10 degrees, you're already sliding.
So where do they feel it?
Great drivers feel it through the seat of their pants, through the feedback in the steering wheel, and really importantly, through the change in the sound and vibration of the tires. It's a total immersion of the senses that lets them keep the car in that incredibly narrow window.
And central to processing all that sensory input has to be vision.
Absolutely central. It dictates where the car goes, and it feeds the brain the info it needs to avoid panic.
The classic, look where you want to go.
Precisely. You have to concentrate relentlessly on looking where you want the car to go, not at the obstacle you're afraid of hitting, like the tire barrier. And looking farther ahead is key, because it gives your brain more time to process and initiate subconscious corrections. If you're looking just over the nose of the car, a slide feels sudden and startling.
But if you're looking way down the track,
If you're looking toward the horizon, slight changes in the car's direction, the very first hint of a slide, they become much more obvious, much sooner.
This moves us into the realm of like mental programming. The sources say that race driving has to become an integrated program, like walking or riding a bike, something that lives in the subconscious. And you develop this through mental imagery or actualization.
Yeah, and actualization is so much more sophisticated than just daydreaming about a fast lap. It's about creating a fully integrated multi-sensory memory. You have to bring in all the senses.
Yeah.
You visualize the track, you feel the G-forces pulling on your body, you hear the engine note and the precise sound of the tires gripping. And you can't do this in a frantic, wide-awake state. It has to be done in a relaxed, integrated alpha-theta brain state, that boundary between wakefulness and sleep. That's what allows the visualization to really imprint itself on your subconscious motor pathways.
And it's this deep programming that allows for that rapid adaptability we see. When you're driving from the subconscious, you're not just relying on the basic reference points, are you? Turn in, apex, exit.
That's right. The great drivers, they utilize dozens of these tiny micro-reference points without even being aware of it. So if a driver turns in just a foot too late, their subconscious mind, which has absorbed all these other cues, recognizes the error instantly and initiates these subtle, effective corrections. The conscious mind never has to interrupt the flow.
So we've arrived at the ultimate psychology of peak performance, which is being comfortable being uncomfortable.
Absolutely, 100%. If a driver never makes an error, if they never feel the car sliding through a corner, they are not going fast enough. It's that simple. The fastest driving is, by definition, operating right at the limit of control. It's a continuous sequence of controlled near misses.
And the paradox is that to achieve that high-level chaos, you have to be totally relaxed.
Exactly. You have to be relaxed, calm, and assertive, never aggressively trying to force the car or tensing up when it starts to slide. That relaxation is what allows the subconscious program to run and execute all those complex corrections.
And the ultimate test of this seamlessly integrated control is how quickly you adapt when the physical world changes around you. You know, a setup tweak or a sudden downpour.
Let's start with tires, because the rubber dictates everything. For instance, production or street tires, which are typically narrower and taller, they actually generate maximum traction at higher yaw angles than stiff racing slicks.
And let's just quickly clarify yaw angle for everyone listening.
Sure. Yaw angle is simply the angle between where the car is pointed and the direction it's actually moving. You know, think of a drift car. It has a massive yaw angle.
Got it.
So because street tires flex more, a driver on that rubber needs to be prepared to drive the car with more slip, more angle, to get the most out of it, compared to a driver on slicks who has to be much tidier and minimize that angle. The very feeling of control has to change completely based on the tire compound.
And the most dramatic adaptation has to be the wet track challenge. When the rain falls, the whole strategy just gets thrown out the window.
It does. It moves from maximizing your corner radius to relentlessly maximizing grip. That's the new goal. In the rain, your cornering traction is reduced way more than your braking or acceleration traction. So the fast line often means sacrificing that textbook smooth arc.
You actually change the line you drive.
Totally. Drivers will use a later, sharper turn-in so they can drive straight ahead for longer, maximizing the grip they have for the heavy longitudinal forces of braking and accelerating. Plus, rain tires are less progressive. They give you much less warning before the grip just vanishes, which means the driver has to be incredibly smooth, maybe even drive a gear higher to soften the power delivery.
And finally, control isn't just internal. It extends to how the driver influences the car's setup, which is really about communication with the pit crew. And the sources are very clear. Drivers should not be prescribing engineering solutions.
That is so crucial for an efficient flow of information. If you've ever tracked your own car, you know how hard it can be to describe a handling problem. The best advice is to stick to what the car is doing, not how to fix it. The driver's job is to accurately report the sensations.
Give me an example.
So instead of saying, stiffen the front shocks rebound 2 clicks, you should say something like, the front end unloads too quickly when I release the brakes, and that's causing understeer. The technical team needs that root sensory input to figure out the precise mechanical fix.
This brings us full circle on our debate over control, doesn't it? It's not one single thing. It's this seamless, constant transition between mastering the physical limits, that traction circle, and the psychological ability to process all this insane sensory input while being comfortable being uncomfortable at 200 miles an hour.
Absolutely. And true mastery means focusing relentlessly on performance. The act of driving at 100% effort and focus in the present moment, not on the result like the lap time or your position on the track.
The result is a consequence of the performance.
The winning comes as a consequence of achieving that optimal performance state.
Yes.
That distinction, focusing on the process versus the outcome, that is incredibly powerful. So here's a final provocative thought for you to chew on based on that coaching philosophy. If you find yourself thinking judgmental thoughts while you're executing a complex task, that was a dumb move to make, or why did I turn in so early? The sources suggest you are focusing your attention on the past. So if your mental energy is busy judging what just happened, how much time are you truly dedicating to the present moment of control? Something to mull over.